Okay. Sä voit varmaan aloittaa. Kohta. Kirsi Heimonen tulee vielä myöhässä kuulemma, mutta
Hello, my name is Irene Kajo. I'm a lecturer on pedagogy, and Ilmari asked me to introduce him and this lecture, The Body as a Spacesuit. And Ilmari is a postdoc researcher in Serada and has been doing the research about the somatics and bodily practices for many years. And I have to say that this discussion with Ilmari has been always really interesting, because I think that in his work, this relation about bodily practices always involves this kind of ethical and pedagogical point of views. Of course, I am highly interested about those aspects as well. And then I just looked up if there is still something important I want to say before I let Ilmari to start. Yes. And I think that the basics of his thoughts are in phenomenological philosophy and thoughts.
Yeah.
And also that Ilmari is also himself practicing many kinds of somatics, bodily. How could you say it? Practices.
Bodily practices.
Bodily practices. Was that enough?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Okay, let's start a very basic 2 minutes meditation. And maybe if you have like a smartphones and stuff, you can shut them down or destroy or whatever, just, that they don't disturb this moment. So we will do very basic meditation in the beginning. And let's do it in a way that you count until 10, and we will count until like only the out breaths. So I'm first breathing in, then I'm breathing out, 1. Breathing in, breathing out, 2. Breathing in, breathing out, 3, until 10. And then you start again. So then you have kind of space in this meditation. Is this clear or not?
So we repeat 10.
Yeah, and don't do it like aloud, just in your mind. And you can either close your eyes or then you can let them be half closed, like in Japanese. Then we do it. So about 10 minutes. I will start it with the bell ringing. I have this thing and.
Or 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
And this is a consensual lecture, so you don't need to do any of these practices if they feel uncomfortable for you. Like some of them we are doing later on, and they might be so that it's kind of too much for some people's nervous system or so. Just find a comfortable place for you to sit, so that you can sit more or less silently and without not so much moving as you do in many meditations. So I repeat the guidance. We are breathing and we are counting the out breath until 10. So I breathe out, 1. I breathe in emptiness. I breathe out, 2. I breathe in emptiness. I breathe out, 3. Just empty. Until 10, and then you start again. Okay. Okay, so hello everybody. Indeed, my name is Ilmari, and the title for today is The Body as Spacesuit. That is linguistically okay. Many of you may be familiar with the story from 60s or 70s about this astronaut who went to the space. And while he came back from the space, people were asking from him, aha, okay, so you went to space, did you meet God? And astronaut replied to people, yes, I did meet God. And then people were kind of, aha, okay, so you went to the space and you met God, so, well, how was it? And the astronaut replied to the people, well, she's black. That's it. This story is told by kind of semi-intellectual, semi-spiritual teacher, quite famous one called Alan Watts. He has this book called Zen, for example, quite famous figure in meditation circles. Yeah, I noticed that I had to use this machine at the same time. And the story is kind of some elements in it, they kind of summarize basically the first part of this presentation and the second part of this presentation. So when even in these modern times when we hear a word God, for example, or we have like this universal experience of God or just some universal experience in meditation, easily happens that it's not just this experience, but we are adding something, some kind of semantic, linguistic, or let's say affective stuff into it. So even in these modern times, we are kind of adult people, and we kind of intellectually we think that we don't add to the picture of God this kind of white beard, nice, compassionate man. But still, this kind of images or imagination is part of our culture. So when we hear the word God, it might be that we get this kind of image, or this kind of affect, or this kind of semantic kind of association. Maybe we don't get this contrary image of a cis black or something else. So this is kind of showing us that when people have, let's say, spiritual experiences or universal experiences, they may come up with some kind of social or affective or semantic kind of, how do you say it, some kind of elements in it. And there's lots of implications in this kind of thing, and I may come to those in the end of the presentation, like culturally, why this is something worth to think about in relation to meditation cultures. So this is basically, is this like, yeah? So this is basically what we are talking about. We have social scientific approach. We have social scientific body theory here today, which is called affect theory. And then we have more like a body theory called body phenomenology, which considers the bodily experience. And affect theory also considers lived body and bodily experience, but there's kind of tension sometimes between this kind of social way to understand embodiment and social way to understand meditation, and on the other hand, this kind of immediate experience or pure experience, which phenomenology in very roughly considers. So this is basically what we're going to do today. First, I will talk about phenomenology, and then we will do some phenomenological practices. I would call them phenomenological, not even phenomenologically like inspired. They are kind of, yes. And then after that, we are going kind of different direction. We are going to speak about how to understand meditation and being present from the social point of view, from the point of view mostly from the so-called affect theory. I try to say something about affect theory when we are coming to that. That's a bit more complicated part. So these kind of two different body theories, they're kind of, maybe I said it already, a bit far away from each other, but I kind of try to find links to them. And this is kind of big theme already, just to discuss about these two different body theories. But let's see how far we get today. And in the end, I'm trying to say something about how phenomenology and social theory of affects, like, is there any way to get these two different ways somehow, like my own perspective, how to find a crossing line, like a crossroad with these two theories or ideas or whatever they are. I think that's basically what we do today. And we will do some practices also in the first part and in the third part. And as I said already, if you don't feel like you want to do them, just don't do them. And if it feels too kind of overwhelming, you can stop anytime. So I kind of see that there's, in meditative circles and in meditation research, there's this kind of more like people, maybe psychologists and practitioners of meditation who are in there right now. They are just in the meditation. And then we have these people who are kind of investigating the social aspects of meditation. Many of these people who are studying meditation from the social scientific point of view, they still practice meditation, and some of them are not. They just want to be objective and they don't know what meditation is experiential, which is a bit funny thing. So the question is also that is this sphere of being present, is it just kind of something inner? Is it something subjective? And what it means if our meditative experience is expanding to the world, what it means that we can investigate meditation, lived body experience being present as somehow social phenomena. Like, is this possible that all these different elements are kind of entangled together somehow in meditation? Let's see, I don't know. Like, it's so hard question that it might be that we don't really get to the answer today. But we have a question and we have these two different sides. That's enough for today. Yeah, I think so. Okay. So I kind of see that there's this experience and social meaning making and something in between these, like how we are first in meditation and then we kind of start to create some kind of relationality to the world, to the objects, to the people, to the materials, to the surfaces. Like, we can be more in the lived body, in this subjective experience of meditation, and then it might be possible to kind of have relationality to the different kind of social objects and so on. So this is kind of something in between these two approaches. I don't know, does this sound like, are you still with me? Yeah, most of you are. Irene is not, but it's okay. Yeah. Okay, nice. There's one example, kind of secular example of how Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is the kind of founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is a mindfulness program, how he is describing meditation as something universal. It is a way of being rather than merely a good idea or a clever technique or a passing fad. Indeed, it is thousands of years old and is often spoken of as the heart of Buddhist meditation. Although its essence being about attention and awareness is universal. So there's this kind of idea that when we have an experience, lived body experience in meditation, it's somehow universal. It can be changed from one culture, from Finland to United States, and it kind of stays, the core of it stays the same. And I would agree, I think basically many elements in meditation are same, kind of not depending on the cultural context in many ways. Well, another thing is then sometimes, let's say like tantric tradition, for example, or some spiritual circles, there might be this kind of idea that we have this universal experience like this. I write experience, and then there's kind of culture around this meditative experience, culture around tantra experience, culture or bodies around this kind of thing. For example, there might be quite strict gender roles for how man is in tantric tradition and how woman is in tantric tradition. So it sometimes goes culturally so that people who have meditative experience in certain kind of social group, they think that also the body in this cultural background is the same thing. So you have a meditative experience and then you create a culture around it and you start to think that, okay, we have this kind of meditative experience. It tells us that men are in a certain way and women are in a certain way. This is kind of roughly said it. But it might be that this is not the case. It might be that we have meditative experience, but it doesn't implicate certain kind of cultural thing or certain way to understand embodiment. That's kind of maybe one implication why to study this kind of thing, kind of point out where are the different lines drawn when we are bringing very powerful experience of meditation to the. Why I do use that since I had. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Okay, so that's kind of background for the why to study this, like maybe one implication. I don't know if it's so important, but anyway. Okay, so now we are coming to phenomenology. Let's say something quite roughly about phenomenology and phenomenological reduction, not going very detailed, kind of, it's not necessary for our purposes. In very general level, we can say that phenomenology investigates experience. A bit more like phenomenology investigate the kind of most basic structures of experience. That might be also a rough way to say it, but something that's very fundamental in our experience. And now I'm making very kind of rough things here. I speak about bodily experience. Of course, in the beginning of phenomenology, it wasn't so. Husserl was just interested about consciousness, but then body came later on with Husserl and some other people. Yeah, and Edmund Husserl, this kind of male presumed philosopher, he is founder of phenomenology, but there were many other phenomenologists who, like Max Scheler, for example, who were investigating the same questions as Husserl, a bit from kind of different point of view. And the idea of phenomenological reduction in a very, kind of in a nutshell, would be that we are kind of trying to find these most basic structures of experience through something that is called epoché, or this kind of bracketing. Bracketing many of the parts of our experience, like, for example, don't worry, we will do it today, so you will know. It's not like you will find out. Like, for example, we can speak about natural attitude, which includes, let's say, our inner speech, our beliefs, our ideas about the world and about us. For example, science is something that we are bracketing, pistää sulkeisiin. So we're kind of, also science is something that we don't find from our experience. Science is it's not here, so we need to bracket it. Sometimes phenomenology is called as a kind of hard science, niin kuin ankaratiede. I don't know what's the better translation. But also Husserl said that it's something that comes before science, actually. So that's why we can put scientific beliefs and understandings in the brackets. So we are really investigating the most fundamental structures of experience. Also, like all these natural attitudes includes, like, as I said, all the beliefs, ideas, who I am, who other people are. Like even all these philosophical theories, like critical mindfulness studies, for example, or all the feminist and chauvinist theories about human being. All these are putting brackets in phenomenological reduction. And also the notion of me or I. So even who I am, even that, it's not part of the phenomenology. This may be very familiar for many of you or some of you, but this is a Studia Generalia lecture, so it's like yeah. So these kind of things, all that I will write it down, like beliefs, ideas, like my normal behavior, like how do I behave. Yeah, that's in a very simplistic way. I know that there's coming, like my old professor Leila Haaparanta and my friend Jaakko Pelt, and these real phenomenological studies, they are coming and saying that, okay, but is this true? Like, is this how Husserl was thinking about it? Since if you read carefully, Husserl didn't say that we can actually do the reduction, maybe. It's just ideal that we are kind of aiming for, but maybe we are not really getting to the reduction and all this stuff. Yeah, I know, but let's stay here. Let's stay in this kind of version of it. Like, this is true enough. It's true enough for our purposes. to understand it. Like, you look so. Are you here? Like, do you follow? It's very easy. Very easy. Yeah. Okay. 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 So this is. Yeah, and of course, maybe I add something. Maybe I say that after we kind of reach this kind of the basic structures of consciousness, we can kind of investigate some of these phenomena in social or cultural world. Kind of, we can find the true essence of things. That's also one thing that they are doing in phenomenological studies. What do I have here? Okay, so then there are people like Francisco Varela, for example, also Timo Klemola from the University of Tampere, who are suggesting that maybe since hundreds of years phenomenologists, they have done phenomenological studies and they have been talking about this reduction, but no one has really given example. There has not really concrete stuff going on. So maybe it would be a good idea to kind of read some of these Eastern practices, some of these very basic bodily practices. We try to understand phenomenological reduction through these different kind of Eastern, or like it can be also Western, but different kind of body awareness practices. We're kind of trying to find the essences and these most basic structures of our consciousness and most basic structures of our body-mind through practicing bodily something. And here are some examples, like Klemola writes in his Filosofian harjoitus, I guess that's the name of the book. Filosofian taidon filosofia. He mentions the idea that when you are doing meditation for a long time, you may have this place when you're breathing naturally. Not that you would do it, but it's naturally kind of you're holding your breath. It just happens when you're doing lots of meditation. That just happens. And when that happens in your embodiment, then kind of mind, this ego consciousness, we have body consciousness and ego consciousness. Kind of ego consciousness is becoming a bit more silent. It's kind of going in the background, and the body consciousness is becoming more alive. You're coming more into this kind of. We can draw it so, like, for example, like this, that we have ego I don't know how to consciousness. Like here, and then this bodily consciousness here, and it's like some kind of liuku, like a slide, that when you're practicing, for example, meditation, the slide is going a bit more here, so then you just happen to be more in your body consciousness. This is what may happen when you practice different kind of things. What's happening? Okay. So holding your breath, also you can do it like on purpose, like you suck it in, you hold your breath for a moment, and in that small moment you can already sense the first part of the phenomenological reduction. Only the first one, since there are three different things that are happening in the reduction. We are staying in the level of one today, so we are not going further. Maybe a bit the second also. Then meditation, there's so many different techniques to practice meditation, like Zen, Vipassana, dynamic, this deep rest meditation nowadays also, and different kind of New Age spiritualities, New Age meditations, Tibetan Buddhist and stuff. Then we can also change the breathing. We can change where we are breathing. Like in Kundalini Yoga, for example, they have this kind of that you're closing some parts of the senses and you can breathe a bit different way. That also makes a remarkable difference from your normal way of feeling and sensing your embodiment, and then something happens. And this is also something that we will do soon. I think both of these we can try that. We already did some meditation. Yes, we did some meditation. I say something about that. also. Oh, then this is my own, like, I'm not sure if we can do it, but maybe not today, but like building a very simple, very closed somatic class, kind of repeating the same kind of things all the time as you do in somatic. So, for example, Feldenkrais, maybe that could be called as a kind of phenomenological reduction also, depending what you are doing and how you are building the class. But I don't mean that like just changing kind of something, like if I'm just here, like if you change something in the body, surely you change something in the way you are seeing the world, but this is not phenomenological reduction. Like just like doing this is not phenomenological reduction. I'm just changing something, but it's not fundamental. We are not going to the reduction here. So I have to be careful. I don't know what people think. Like, could a very simple somatic class be an example of kind of this kind of reduction? I don't know. And then also the last example of this, before we go to the kind of small practices, would be this kind of that we can become aware of the place where the speaking starts, or we can become aware of the place where the someone who sees is, like havainnoiva itse in Finnish. Like, and very simple way, if you are doing meditation and you, for example, I don't really actually like do this so much myself, but you count your breathings and you say aloud this very, very, very kind of slow. You say one in Finnish, and then you're kind of going backwards a bit, like kind of, and then you're going a little bit backwards again, like, aha, so here is the place where the speaking is actually starting. And you kind of start to find a place between the letters or before the speaking starts. It may take some time to practice it, but it's actually, this kind of practice can actually take you for this kind of pause, this empty kind of, like you did in the beginning. You're counting your breathings like out, one, and then there's this empty space. Like investigating this, it might, yeah. This is something that Timo Klemola is suggesting. Might be a, yeah. It's moving. What the? Yeah, maybe before the practices I say something about these. We are very far now. It has been going well, like, yeah. Okay. Okay. Shadow of Timo Klemola. that's Klemola, like, oh fuck, what the boy is doing here, he kind of telling everything totally wrong. Not yet. I had the idea that we will have small discussions in the kind of end of each section. Okay. Is that okay for you?
I just had a question about a term, but I can ask.
Term?
A term. Like one of the terms you use there.
Okay, well ask. Yeah.
If it's all right, I can wait till later.
It's okay. It's okay.
Could you clarify a little bit what you mean by this ego consciousness?
Yeah, I can. Like the inner speech. Like we all speak aloud, like I'm doing now, and then I'm slowing it down, and then this is kind of
awareness of the self.
All that stuff that you have, basically, like all the beliefs. I also mean that I have believed that you are Alex. Like I strongly believe that, and kind of whatever kind of like just the basic notions. Okay, there's a floor is a wooden. All this, like how is it really going? Like what they are actually thinking, like in their minds when I'm presenting. All this stuff that is kind of endless, kind of stream of consciousness in a way. Like it's just going. They call it monkey mind in meditative traditions. Like mind is going here and there, and it's always worried about something. It just doesn't stop. until it can slow down maybe. Inner speech, like feelings or emotions are a bit difficult since they can be they're also bodily. But in many senses that linguistic, semantic, affective stuff that's somehow related to this inner speech. But you get the idea. That's, yes.
I get the idea.
Like it's a big, that there's so many big discussions inside this lecture, but it's very nice not to go there, like these analytic philosophers, you know, like, yeah, okay, okay, now I continue with this
Thank you.
slide. Okay, cheers. And the outer world is bracketed in the first part of the phenomenological reduction. So this is, what does this mean? It means this that we are putting something in the brackets. But basically it means something more that, for example, in Zen you can, in Soto Zen, you just go and you stare at the wall for some time. And then most of the things that we have in the daily life, they are disappearing. Like the sounds, most of the sounds, most of the, like your family, for example, and all these things that are bothering us in the daily life. So basically you have possibility, if you have possibility to bracketing the outer world in this just very, very concrete way, that you are just, you don't have so much sensory load, senses are not loaded so much. All these different senses that we have, they are not loaded so much. Basically that's the thing, and I think we actually did it in the beginning when we did meditation with eyes closed. That's already something. And the second part of the reduction could be this that this ego consciousness, this inner speech, like roughly, is limited, narrowed down a bit. Like basically, when we are counting our breathing, we are have some place that the inner speech is not just going here and there, but we have some focus for it. So that's the second part of the reduction, according to this model. It can be whatever, like in Vipassana, they have this, let's see, there's plenty of, yes. Yes. In Vipassana, they study and pay attention to this place between nostrils and upper lip. In Zen Buddhism, it's hara, the whole area of diagram, the this center of the body, if it's like can be something somewhere else, but basically that one. You have or some images in some hazy traditions. Okay, you get the idea. So that's the second part of the phenomenological reduction. And Klemola does claim this third part. I don't think we will get here, but he is saying that, like, if you really do the phenomenological reduction, you are actually also reducing the whole body and breathing. That's the pure consciousness. Doesn't happen so easily, but when you do lots of meditation, some other meditative practice, or whatever you find comfortable for yourself. Yes, yeah. But body, you have the sense that there's no body anymore. There's just this something going on here. But that's not even the no self that Buddhist people talk about. That your self is melting into the bright white light or some thing. So, but this is hardcore thing. But yes, this yksi. Taking one quote and then there's lots of stuff. But holding your breath, you can stop the associations, this ego consciousness can be. But it might take some time, but we can get kind of small taste of it by just doing some practice where we are holding our breathing. Let's do it. I think I need to do something for this. So I will show very, very small and very simple practice. And I chose this since I think that it's kind of, there's this possibility that you can kind of get sense of it. We do it 3 times, and don't do anything yet. Then we will do it after this. And we need a wall. If it would be like a warm-up, this is kind of warm-up, but this is also example of holding your breathing. And I think it would be like a class. We could do it in trios, so that 2 people would hold the person who is doing this phenomenological reduction. And it's a very good practice like that, but this is a Studia Generalia, and we don't have so much time. No, we do have lots of time. But anyway, there are good reasons why we're not doing it here. So I saw it 2 times. You're kind of sucking the breath in like as it, I don't know, pill? Is it like, I don't know?
Straw.
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 Huh?
A straw.
A straw.
Straw.
Okay, whatever. You just suck the breath in quite heavily, and you feel the upper part of the lungs in the 2 first times. So then it may happen that your like hara stomach is kind of a bit tense when you do it, and then you kind of like you do it like, and then you, if you're able and if it's okay for you, you raise on the balls of your feet. So like this, and you kind of come here. And you can close your eyes, and you can open your whole upper body. And I'm still kind of playing that I'm still holding my breath. And then you just come down from there, like this. And we do it 3 times. And when you're up here and your lungs are filled of the air and you just hold your breath, you close your eyes and you open, and you are on the balls of your feet, so you can get this idea kind of almost like this kind of that you're just floating. If there would be 2 people, it would be more like this, but it's kind of floating. And this place, when you are here, eyes closed and holding your breath, that's the moment of reduction, basically. That's it for today, for this very short. It can be kind of also for the nervous system a bit kind of heavy, actually, surprisingly heavy. So if you have this that you fall down, don't do it, or whatever. So let's do it 3 times. Is there something that's not clear?
You breathe out when you go down?
Yeah, you breathe out. You still breathe like when you go down. So we are not doing the 3rd part of the reduction. We are not losing the breathing. And let's just 3 times this, and then you can just investigate this kind of thing. And one more thing. 3rd time that you are doing it, if it happens to you, it depends how you are. But in the 2 first times, you can also sense that your abdominals are kind of tensed, and you hold the breathing here. But the 3rd time, you can investigate this possibility that even though you're holding your breathing like this, you can, eyes closed, investigate the breathing going down. So you're actually kind of investigating the different areas of your body. You're still holding your breath, but you just investigate, can you drop yourself more into this body? This is a bit complicated, and you can forget that part if it's not like for you and if it's too complicated. There's Lisa left. Yeah. Okay. And well, it's a good idea to take it quite deep and really hold your breath, but if it's really going not good for you, then stop or whatever. Okay, let's come down. And whenever you feel, we do it 3 times so you can start to build up. Okay, maybe in the end you can just stay here, like in a kind of catty, like a cat, between your legs, if it was somehow that you need to rest for a while. Kind of dropping your head and hands between your and take your time. How was it? Shortly, like. Is it okay? Okay. Okay. Okay, then we have another example of phenomenological reduction, as I understand it, and maybe some other people also. And this is based on there's other. Yeah, in the phenomenological part, there are lots of male presumed people. Like I don't know. I have started to use this since it's kind of like it seems to be that's kind of common ground. Although some, yeah, okay. So Max Seiler was also a phenomenologist, and he had this question that okay, how to get to the reduction, and what happens if we close all the sensory input, and Seiler was kind of theoretically asking this question, and then I thought that maybe just to do that, like maybe that's the like just go there, but. There's these sensory deprivation tanks nowadays, and I think you can even kind of lose the kind of some way the sense of touch also. I'm not sure, but you can basically lose like this taste. I don't know how to lose that, but taste, like hearing, smelling, seeing, touching. So he had this kind of question, and one answer would be to do basic meditation, and then there's lots of these senses are more silent, but also one possibility is to actually close a couple of these senses for 1 or 2 minutes. And I had this idea originally that I will bring these and try out these kind of things, but I thought that no, that's not the same. Since manually it's very different. It was very nice to do with those, but manually it's a there's kind of suffering there a bit. But it's somehow, I felt that this manual thing is much somehow, it's going more into this, I don't know how to explain it, maybe because you don't have hands even, kind of. So this poor man's sensor deprivation tank can be done very simply, and it's also similar. It's kind of, some people seem to like, but not like it's not obvious. And I don't know what to do, since these are very good examples of reductions anyway. So maybe we do that for like two minutes. Sound? No, I haven't. That's the only thing I haven't done. Okay, so that's not really. Well, it's better than nothing. Well, then we can answer the sailor's phenomenological question: what is left when all the senses or some of the senses are? So you can just sit there and you just use this like a method. Like I will first just say what we do and then we do it again. Maybe it's easiest that way. We just close this, and then we take these two of these and we put them very gently on the top of the eyeballs. So like don't press your eyeballs too much, and then we just close. So already now you have to breathe through your mouth, which can be a bit unpleasant sometimes. Sometimes it's very nice, and you get used to it if you do it a lot. So and then you close the ears like from here. So we just do that for 2 minutes, and then we come back hopefully. And if someone is not coming back, you can just kind of. And like I will use this in the end, so you will probably hear this when it ends. I think you can. And 2 minutes is a long time for some. And let's start. Just Elisa is sending this Saunalahti thing is sending messages, and I'm trying to kind of. So 2 minutes. And
are they sponsoring your lecture?
like you wouldn't believe. It's like. Okay, so first we close this with the index method, and then we put 2 fingers slightly on the top of the eyeballs, and then we close the ears. Okay. I don't see you anymore. So here you can get a taste that it can be kind of maybe the kind of small change after doing small reduction, like possibly, or then not. That's another example of reduction. Was this okay? Okay, nice. Okay, then we do it again, like with some other, like kind of we are continuing with it, and this is the last reduction, and then we go into the more like affective space. So you can just take a space, like you can, what the fuck, in the floor, or you can stand or whatever, and we do this same thing, maybe 3 minutes, and then you just, I think I give you two options. You can just do this and now really pay attention to the diagram and hara and investigate different kind of peripheral areas of your breathing, like how diagram is touching the other part of the other parts of the body, or how diagram is kind of how your breathing is coming up. So you can kind of also create a kind of small movement if you want, just investigating the inner space of your breathing. It doesn't have to mean your kind of physical body, but you can just do this kind of investigation of what's going on here and how it is. That's one option. And another option is that you are actually moving quite a lot, not too much, don't to stumble other people since you are actually eyes closed, but that you are kind of starting to create this kind of, that when you are breathing, let's say, in you move, and then when you're breathing out in this, you can just be there and you just move when you're breathing in, kind of investigating a bit more, kind of bring this practice a bit more relational. You're actually kind of moving your body a bit. You can choose, you can do that, or just stay in this, that you are investigating how breathing is happening in the kind of peripheric areas of your body, and just investigating the inner space. So you have some kind of focus, but it's fairly large focus. Where is the breathing happening, and how the breathing is happening in the peripheric areas of your diaphragm and lungs. So where it's kind of touching upon your legs and here, and can you feel the breathing in different parts? Is the breathing influencing in some other parts of the legs? So let's try this out. It's fairly understandable. A bit blurry, but fairly understandable. Yeah, okay, let's do that still, so that we can get the image that how it would kind of bring this reduction to some other kind of what happens. Is there anything happening when we're doing this kind of thing?
Are we closing all the senses at the same time?
Yes, we first do this, and we are all the time there, and then we are investigating the inner space. And this is the practice, and this is the last for this first part. We have, yes, that's a nice. So about 3 minutes. Maybe I again do this techno-scientific thing. So do it when you're ready. I will ring the bell again. There's no hurry. I will start soon. And if you don't feel like, don't do it. That's another possible way to do it. Another possible way to do it with this phenomenological kind of investigation. Obviously, all these things that are mentioned here, they might take some building and some time, but you at least get some kind of idea that how we could fairly concretely understand what the phenomenological reduction is or could be, or at least how we could read phenomenology through this kind of okay. So yeah, now we're kind of starting to turn to the second part of this presentation. Yes, and in the end I have brought this kind of definition of, I have some definition of mindfulness. Since this is also, now we have investigated what is being present and what is the experience of being present through phenomenological tradition, or at least a very basic kind of core idea of phenomenology. But then there are other people and other theories how to investigate being present, and one of them is mindfulness-based cognitive therapy and mindfulness-based stress reduction, and they have even made this definition for this. This is just kind of just to compare, like if you compare this to the phenomenological investigation that we have done, at least for me, I find it that the phenomenological way to investigate it is it's quite analytic. It's kind of going deep to how body is actually working and how the body, mind, and body awareness are functioning. And sometimes in mindfulness there are very many good things also. And this is not like I have done this social critique of mindfulness, but this is not that kind of lecture at all. I cannot say everything. But maybe a small kind of point are that the awareness that emerges through paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to things as they are, according to Sindel, Siegel, Mark Williams, who we are coming later on today, and Teasdale. So this is the basic definition even in 2013. And this is basically the same definition that Jon Kabat-Zinn is giving in 79. He started, maybe the definition was made a bit later. And then also this famous mindfulness paper from Bishop et al. They basically say the same thing about mindfulness. And I have to say that if we compare this to the phenomenological way to explain being present here now, this is a bit, it's kind of made for the cognitive psychological purposes, and the body is missing totally. Like for example, there's no body at all. So I think if you define being present or this practice of being present or mindfulness, I think you should at least bring the body there somehow. And also I kind of find that if you start to analyze this way to understand being present experiential way, but still kind of defining it like paying attention on purpose, well, that happens maybe even in this Japanese Shikantasa meditation when you kind of have open awareness. It's like a wind that you are meditating. It's like a wind. You don't have concentration point. You are not paying attention like basically on your breathing, but you are just investigating what's here in meditative practice. Shikantasa is called this practice, and I could talk about that more. But basically, maybe not so, like the paying attention is not there. So it depends on what kind of meditation you do, if you actually pay attention even. In some also dynamic meditations, you can just kind of allow things to happen. You are not paying attention. And also the present moment can be problematic since if I'm comparing the Japanese Zen tradition, they chant this, that there is no yesterday, no tomorrow, no today. So even this, that I'm using this present moment, even the presence is not in meditation. So of course you can say many things, but just kind of see that there are different traditions of being present and different ways to understand it. Yeah. And there is this critical kind of small thing there also. Let's come here. Okay, so now we're in the second part of the presentation. We suddenly came here, and I think that affects are very not easy to explain, since they are kind of, according to many theorists, there are so many of those people, like in some sense non-linguistic. Like something that's going on here when I'm speaking and you are there, there's kind of affects going between the bodies, between me and you as an audience, as a separate, and between the audience people, you have affects going between you, and there might be these affects going between my lived body experience and also like a chair or a camera or kind of, it can be human or non-human kind of, this kind of relations are in affect theory they count. But it's very hard to define it since it's so, and it's not even the point maybe for today. I would very basically say, I haven't put it here, but I would very basically say that we are investigating how our bodies are affected and affecting, and we're kind of investigating the relationality of body. So if you think about what's happening in meditation, you are investigating the body consciousness, body awareness, but you're kind of investigating it subjective way. And this is what my teacher in philosophy often said, that it's not even inner and outer in some sense in phenomenology, since lived body experience is subjective experience of something, and then this body as an object is another term, which means that we are kind of treating body as an object. For example, if I'm running, I have some kind of goal, and then the body is an object for that kind of reaching the destination. That's body as an object, and then there's lived body. But so in some sense, in phenomenology, there is no inner and outer body. There is just this kind of different kind of attitudes that we take. Lived body experience is a certain kind of attitude, and body as an object is certain kind of attitude. I think that's an important point. But where was I? Now I really got lost. Yeah, about in affects. So affects are circulating, and their lived body experiences, maybe non-linguistic, they're circulating between. And you can get maybe an idea about an affect if you just become aware of how people are situated in here. Like how we are, and what is the composition of the people and these cameramen and cameras and us. How are we? How are we here? This is an affective atmosphere. Something is moving and it's changing all the time. Like the fact that I'm changing this thing all the time is also part of it. And I know that we've been breathing quite a lot, so if you want kombucha, I have some kombucha in the refrigerator so you can drink. Like seriously, you have been doing lots of breathing work, so please take kombucha if you need. It's there. It's a good stuff. I bought it myself.
Did you bring the fridge too?
No. Yeah, but there's kombucha. So anytime if you feel that you're kind of, because of the breathing practices, you feel that you need to drink, I really recommend it since this cup time. No, they don't pay me. But, yeah. No. But okay, you don't need to.
Yes, but it's kind of like going to the stage where you take to get the kombucha.
You can go. It's just camera. okay, maybe this is also example of an affect. Okay, that no one is going. Okay, sorry, I have to. Okay, so now we are coming to the affective approach. Let's keep it kind of the main points of this kind of affective approach. And no, we could have stayed only in phenomenology, but since the topic was that how social scientific approach is crossing the phenomenological experience, I will say something about this kind of social scientific approach, social scientific body theory, and what affects are. And now we're really going to different direction. Now we're really going to nice and normal academic kind of research. So we had this kind of case study on how to investigate this being present and how to investigate meditation as a social phenomenon. So kind of surround this actual experience and what's surrounding this actual experience in a certain kind of focused program of mindfulness. And there is even this article, and it's published quite lately, this Assembling Mindful Bodies, Mindfulness as a Universal Laboratory of Practice. It's by Steven Stanley and me. And when I really kind of, I have to keep on. Like, when I did this presentation, I was really like happy that I started to do phenomenological research again, since I found that this is enough. This is just like, I don't need this social stuff anymore. It's not needed. But the critique of this kind of phenomenological approach can be still that this is kind of investigating and trying to find these universal basic structures. It can also lose something that's alive and important in our embodiment. It can lose this relationality, this social relationality. And there's some quote from our article that's kind of trying to give some argument why this is, why we may need to go to the affect theory, affect phenomenology, like why phenomenology is maybe not enough. So I will read it. It's not here, but yes. So the mind body of the mindfulness practitioner, at least within this day of practice of mindfulness, is presented as being able-bodied and implied to be genderless, sexless, raceless, and classless. That is, no explicit topicalizing of sex, gender, sexuality, race, ethnicity, or class takes place within this mindfulness-based cognitive therapy training event. Although the aging body is implicitly acknowledged in the bus pass anecdote. In this sense, mindful bodies are implied to be universal and transcendent of society, culture, and history, according to Matthew Drake. Being mindful is also suggested to be independent of religious or political belief. Mindfulness is made to be a universally accessible technique applicable to all people at all times and in principle inclusive of everyone's experience. And then I'm jumping to the final kind of point. In her essay, Loving the Computer, Cognition, Embodiment, and Influencing Machine, philosopher Elizabeth Wilson suggests that at the heart of this kind of cognitive theories, we find the body of the thinking man. So the point is that meditation practices are they have been like Buddhist meditation, as said in the beginning, they have been going here for a long time. And just recently, for example, women get into the Zen Buddhist monasteries. There are still lots of Zen Buddhist monasteries when women cannot come. So the body of a meditator, even though we as meditators may not notice it, is kind of brought to meditation through certain kind of embodiment, which is a male embodiment. And these same critiques, it can go also to this kind of phenomenological approach, which is very clear, and it's very kind of strict. Okay, we can find these universal structures, and of course gender is not part of this since it's kind of bracketed. But this may implicate different kind of versions of phenomenology, different kind of ways to understand what is universal experience, like is God sees black, or is it this very nice father figure, patriarchate kind of figure who is telling you how to do. Like there is this kind of assemblances here. These kind of things are sneaking in easily. According to some people, maybe not so, I don't know. But so this is kind of argument why it's interesting to investigate also this kind of social focus on meditation. And with Steven Stanley, we were using Margaret Wetherell and Lisa Blackman also. Wetherell is pretty clear affect studies writer. So she's pointing out that focus on affective practices allows researchers to study social meaning making without making sharp divides between bodies, discourse, affects, and emotions. The concept of affective practice encompasses the movement of signs, but it also tries to explain how affect is embodied, is situated, and operates psychologically. So affective approach, this how bodies are relational, it also gives us this kind of possibility to study body as a multiple, different aspects of embodiment, and all these places when the universal body still seems to have hints of gender or some kind of social meaning making in its relationality. This is a difficult thing. I know it's kind of muddied and messy stuff, but this could be one way to approach to being present as well. And so we did it. Well, actually, Steven did it. I wasn't here. I didn't have money. But he went. Here's Steven, by the way. He's very nice guy. And here's Jonka Batsin leading in this hotel mindfulness meditation for these mindfulness teachers already. So they share already lots of affects about what is mindfulness and lots of linguistic knowledge about mindfulness. And here is Mark Williams leading in the same way mindfulness class for the most like therapists, psychologists, different kind of people. And we started to pay attention that what is the affect here. Steven was here, and then we were analyzing this 4-hour kind of mindfulness program led by Mark Williams again and again and again, like in Cardiff University. It was kind of heavy stuff, and then we did some discourse analysis even what's happening here when someone is teaching mindfulness. And we really went there kind of quirky, kind of a bit nerdy way, like really kind of let's see. We were paying attention, like there's a disco ball in the top, like in the bottom in the ceiling, and we were paying attention about these flowers that are following Kabat-Zinn and Williams, and this water bottle, and the bright light coming to this, like how these composition kind of almost like choreographies are making the mindful body, how they are kind of making this mindful affect. And yeah, there's a lot of details in it. And for example, if you think about Zen tradition, people are put in a different kind of choreography or kind of composition. They are sitting in the Soto Zen, they are facing the wall, and in Rinzai Zen, I think they are facing the center of the space, kind of in a square way in Zendo. So this kind of composition is coming from the Vipassana tradition. So it's a certain kind of way to put people in this affective space. And when we started this, I had this like, it's not really the real thing kind of thing, but we continued, and we kind of started to see that there are actually lots of structures and lots of things that are surrounding this practice. I know that when you are a practitioner of mindfulness or meditation, you might feel that this is not relevant, that these people don't know what they're doing when they're investigating this social thing. But you kind of start to find different kind of layers there. We can speak about body multiplicity or body as an assemblance. So kind of different layers of embodiment, like all these different things, class, gender, how bodies are in relation to each other. All these things, they are, when we are investigating body as a social, body as an affective thing. And according to some people who are writing about assemblances, from anthropological point of view, they say that the active labor of pulling together, so the assemblance or body multiplicity means that we are pulling together and sustaining diverse, sometimes apparently incompatible elements that have no inherent allegiance with one another. So when we are studying body as a multiple, there might be kind of this, that body is this and body is this. Body is technological, body is organic, body is non-gendered, body is gendered, mindful body is sacred, and it's totally like psychological, there's no spirituality in it. All these different nuances are there when we are investigating mindful body. So that's a super interesting thing, actually, at least for me. So this, what assemblances or body multiplicity means in the case of mindfulness training. So there are lots of different kind of things that are actually making the bodies as mindful from the social scientific perspective. So we are kind of building on certain kind of ways to understand body and mindful bodies and spaces. This is how we found it. And as I said, this is a very different from experiencing and practicing mindfulness, but it was very kind of choosy thing to do it. I wouldn't maybe do it again. And here's just a couple of slides about this a day of mindfulness practice and dialogue. Maybe we don't stay too long time. Maybe you get the idea how and what is this social investigation, how we could investigate affects as a very concrete way, and how to investigate meditation as affective thing. So here is just a book that I quoted before. And in the beginning of the study, we were a bit lost in translation, and we started to pay attention what is the intersubjective dynamics between teachers and participants, and how the pragmatics of pedagogy is actually happening there, how this mindfulness is presented in Finland. For example, Jon Kabat-Zinn gave a lecture in Kulttuuritalo, and it was very scientific, psychological. And then I saw this 2007 Jon Kabat-Zinn giving a lecture on Google, and it was full of these new age ideas how workers' bodies are entangled together as kind of affect, kind of together organism. So very different kind of things that he was saying. And something happened between this Kulttuuritalo and Google, like he was presenting mindfulness a totally different way for the different audience, of course. But so this was also what we were trying to find out, how is mindfulness changing in different cultures, how it is becoming different. And when we went more detailed, we find these optical metaphors. Like in meditative traditions, very often there is this someone who is seeing. There are of course very good reasons why people are using this kind of seeing your mind as something. But in Kabat-Zinn's and also Mark Williams' way to use this optical metaphor was that they were kind of connecting this optical metaphor with the mechanistic body. So when you are practicing meditation, your body becomes as if it's like a scientific thing or somehow mechanistic thing that you are investigating through kind of medicine or natural sciences. So most of these metaphors about seeing and this optical were kind of as if the bodies of these mindfulness practitioners would be kind of mechanistic and medical thing that you're investigating in this way. So this brings a very specific also already it becomes very bodily thing that you start to think that okay, I'm doing this research on my body. And I know of course when I'm leading my own classes of embodiment that happens, you use metaphors and that's on. That happens, it's not like that you shouldn't do that, you will do it when you're leading body-mind practices or whatever. But it's very interesting that this kind of medicalized way of seeing the body was becoming part of the mindfulness somehow. And that's already something that's kind of influencing on how your body is, how you understand your body. I just brought some counter image, doesn't relate to anything. It's Foucault doing Zen meditation in his late age. Like, probably he was already sick then, but kind of, yeah, just a counter image. Okay, so maybe this is the last thing I say about this social approach. So we found this different kind of, that this body is a universal on the other hand, and then on the other hand it's organic, it's technological. Mindful body can be kind of sacred, kind of very spiritual, going through this kind of breathing. And then again it can be very kind of secular, so it doesn't include any kind of spirituality or religious things. Maybe I read one example of that, like how in mindfulness training the spiritual body is guided back to this kind of mindfulness kind of mode. This is extract 3 called doorway. So participant 2, there's a long history behind this, but this is just one example. If participant 2 is saying, it really struck me in that moment that opening to the quality of the breath is like a doorway into the immediacy of this whole experience. So it's not just the quality of breath. You know that instruction, it's like a kind of doorway into opening to this, as opposed to being caught in reflection. Yeah. And Mark Williams is kind of languaging again what this guy feels and what he's doing, and he's saying the following. What is it? Can you say more about that shift? It sounds like a really interesting shift between just observing the breath and something being drawn into the notice, its quality in some way. What is it about that draws you in, do you think? It's discourse analysis, so we made it. So maybe this quotation doesn't show it, but there's a repeating pattern that this person is kind of speaking about opening that goes beyond breathing. And Mark Williams cannot say, there's this opening, this spiritual thing, so he's guiding him back. So you were breathing. You were paying attention to breathing. No, I didn't mean that. I had this opening, this doorway. And so it was. So this is an example how also the mindfulness experience can be narrowed and the body can become like not sacred, not spiritual, but kind of nice and normal mindfulness. Okay, there would be lots of about gender and stuff, gender and all these. Like we even went to this how like really quick, like where were the people in the hotel? like what is the map of this hotel and how people are located? What is the kind of composition? But yeah. Okay, maybe this is the last. Okay, I say one more thing. Kind of very basic Finnish relationship. That's how it is. Like no one is leading mindfulness like this. Like sit, be mindful. But how the leaning of mindfulness happened in this affective state was that you were guided into the experience of meditation. You are given first lots of possibilities to practice this bodily practice. So it's a very suggestive way, as I did for you. I gave you 2 different possibilities. So this is kind of how you usually lead mindful MBSR or MBCT, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. So kind of bringing people into some kind of practice, so it's permissive prescription. There's lots of possibilities and descriptions how you could do it. But still, beneath this, there's certain structure the way you are guiding the meditation or mindfulness. There's certain kind of things that you do in mindfulness practice. So it's kind of allowing, it's not like saying you should sit like this, but in the end there is a structure behind this anyway. This can happen in many kind of bodily practices and guidances, and there's possibility of manipulation also if you are really like that kind of things. Okay, so I think this is enough about the social. This is a like nice and normal social scientific study that we did in this second part, and I just tried to show how affects can be investigated very concrete way, like not so spiritual or not so kind of even being present, but just how they can be. And now we can take a breath. I at least drink this kombucha. Oh. Lots of talking. Okay, so this is the thing. Like now I have done it. Like I have shown 2 different ways to understand being present, and it's a large scale now for this kind of lecture. But what really interests me at the moment in my research is how, or is there even possible to bring these two somehow together. First, I had this idea that maybe I will speak about like how somatic subjective experience could be entangled with some social things. But then I found that, but this is too much. Like I cannot do it at this moment. I don't have ability to do it at the moment in a way that I would like to do it. For example, Jill Green, she has written about this, that we can have these spiritual ontologies, like ontologies about meditation. For example, about how body is extending to the world, like from the meditative or some other spiritual or somatic practice, how we can extend the body, how the relationality can come. Like how, for example, in meditation you can melt into the world, you can have these experiences that you're just melting into the world and everything that's here is you and you are melted into it. This is how people describe kind of no-self experiences. And on the other hand, we have this like postmodern sociological theories and affect theory and different kind of ways to kind of posthumanism, which are more like materialistic, ontologically they are materialistic ways to understand reality. So there's kind of religious ontology, which is kind of idealistic, coming from the subjective experience, and then roughly post-humanist people who are more like materialistic. So somehow you are in relation and relational all the time, and you don't have even your emotional stuff and your individual stuff, you're just part of the reality, but it's still like somehow materialistic thing. Well, this is a philosophical discussion. So there seems to be kind of counter, like this crossroad again between 2 different ways to understand how body expands to the space, how body expands to the world. But I have had discussions with some people about this, and I think we can just, for example, in dance piece, maybe people just bring both of these ontologies on the stage and they see what happens. Someone can like, somatically feel things in a dance performance and just kind of go into the subjective experience, kind of letting go about performing, and then at some point the performing kind of social element is coming part of that. So you can kind of play with this, what is subjective, what is being present in my subjective experience, and what is somehow social, somehow performative. Just trying to get, like, this is kind of free speech now. This is a very interesting thing, and this was behind all this, that I came back to this, my old research with a kind of different angle. So I kind of wanted to investigate this kind of problematics in meditation and mindfulness circles. So these following things are mainly kind of just tentative ideas. Feldenkrais is speaking something that how muscles and nerves and skeleton are kind of somehow oriented the organic ties of social orientation are followed up into the muscles, nerves, and skeleton. Already in 64. So how we understand lived body, its kind of anatomical aspects and all these aspects in relation to the social and affective aspect. This is super interesting, and like I don't have like anything ready, but I just started to think some ideas how phenomenology, kind of this reduction even, could come up with affective investigation. And then I found out that maybe you have to do a really kind of minimal things, that you have to go back to this reduction, go back to this subjective being, back to this somatic kind of sensing, and then you start to bring one or two social elements within it. Like I'm talking about now about the meditative kind of. So not kind of trying to bring this kind of all this gender and race and all these which are really interesting, but kind of start with the reduction, start with the subjective sensing, and then add one kind of relationality. Just one certain small thing, just how my mouth is in relation to that chair. I'm kind of starting to build this kind of relationality between my mouth and a chair. And that's just this kind of really small relationalities are already becoming social if you're coming from the meditative practice. So maybe these kind of things could be interesting to study, kind of very subtle, kind of small units of when this kind of subjective experience is changing something that is semantic or affective. So this could be just one example of how to study bodily being in the crossroad of social and phenomenological. Not bring the gender, not bring anything like that, but just something that's relational and start to build on basis of that. Probably dancers are doing this kind of thing anyway. Obviously you are. Like I see dancers here. But this could be one way to kind of investigate meditative experience in relation to affects. So that could be one. Does this sound like something like understandable or like not really? Like too understandable? Okay. Well, so different kind of this kind of things, kind of playing between the reduction and relationality, kind of something that's not yet social, not anymore only this pure experience, or it's maybe not pure anyway, but kind of subjective thing. And then kind of changing, if you want to change what's presented in mindfulness, these optical metaphors, you could use this kind of bring actually your awareness and meditative awareness to the mouth. Like in body-mind centering, BMC, they have these courses when you're starting to study how mouth is in relation to the objects. And you could go very detailed, like how my mouth is kind of, when the fetus doesn't have doesn't use hands yet, the first thing which is kind of relational with the social, not social word even yet, but somehow relational, it's mouth. So mouth has this ability to work as kind of more like an organ. We use mouth as talking and eating and drinking, kissing, whatever, different kind of things. But we could bring mouth back to this kind of very fetus kind of thing. So we actually start to build a class in which we are not first using maybe eyes, and then we are starting to use mouth in relation to objects. And this brings people different kind of sense of presence than you would do it with the eyes or some other kind of body. So I think this kind of contrary bodily imagination, kind of like in the same thing that Alan watches that sees black, kind of bringing these contrary images in the bodily level and start to investigate a bit different way. Kind of interesting thing, and this is what in body-mind centering they do. Maybe this is enough for this. And then we can try that mouth thing in the end. Is that nice? So always when you have, yeah, let's do that. We will have a discussion after that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. basically I would take maybe 2 hours for building this, but maybe it's just that we just walk into space, like, yeah, we can walk into space. Oh. And while you are walking, you can make small stops and then walk again and see if something is different in your walking or in your presence. Whenever you turn, you can try this out that you let your eyes turn first and the body is following. So now we're walking and we have to turn at some point. And then when you face something, you let the eyes turn first and then the body is following. Kind of let the body follow the eyes. Eyes go first. Eyes turn first. Then you can come back to this more normal way to use eyes, so your eyes and body is turning when you're turning at the same time. Kind of etusilmät, kind of eyes and body turn at the same time. And you can become aware if something is different in these 2 ways. And next time you are turning, you can do the same with the mouth. So kind of when you need to turn, you let your mouth turn left or right. Just investigate this for a good time. You need to use your lips and cheeks, the whole mouth area. Just investigate this kind of way of moving so that the mouth is leading your movement in different directions. This will be not shooted, so you won't be in the camera, so don't worry. Try at different directions. Then you can drop this and just continue walking. Then you can come back to this mouth moving again. So you let your mouth lead your movement and turning. You can just play with it a bit even more. And you can start to slow down a bit in a way that you find one point in a space, like in the wall or floor, and kind of starting to create this relation between a mouth. Of course you see, but you can even put your eyes a bit kind of dimmer. Mouth and that one point, you can kind of go near to it and go far from it. Kind of creating this, that you are not using your hands, but you're really trying to grasp that. Maybe not, if you want to taste, you can taste, but maybe not. So you just kind of use your lips and mouth to make the relation with this one point in a space on the surface. And you just investigate, can you create this kind of small relation between a point in a space? Kind of this idea that you're grasping or kind of investigating with your mouth this. You can really go close to it. And here the lips and the mouth are quite active all the time. You can slow down, take different directions, angles to it. Let the mouth lead the direction. Kind of grasping the point. If you want, you can one time change the point. You can find another and continue with this kind of grasping, kind of creating this connection. Maybe closing your eyes for a moment and still seeing the object and just connecting with your mouth. You can imagine kind of string or a light that's between your mouth and this object. And then you can take the image that you are not really actively trying to grasp it, but kind of this point in a space is kind of calling your mouth. So mouth becomes quite passive, and there's kind of relation between your mouth and this object. But mouth is more like passive, as if the object would kind of call your mouth, kind of invite you. The object is calling you and your mouth, and you move towards it, but you don't actively grasp it. And then once more you can change more to this kind of that there's objects and directions to it, and your mouth is very active, kind of creating the connection between you and the object. You can even change the object if you feel like. how different ways the mouth and the lips can try to investigate and grasp this point in a space or object, and how the body is moving when you are creating this kind of relation. Maybe it's not moving. Can you become in relation to this object with your mouth? Kind of grasping and investigating. And then little by little you can kind of let go of this and find a place to rest in the floor maybe. Take small time to rest. Take your time. Okay. Okay, we have time to maybe gather here, I guess, in the circle and just share a bit. And if you need to go, you just go. Joo, ne taitaa alkaa justiinsa. Joo, no, a couple of people are here. But yeah, let's just share, like, this last part, it was a bit experimenting. But anyway, so this could be an example of how to change it a bit. So do you have any questions or comments or like whatever points that you want to make? Still people?
I guess one question is, why the mouth?
Because it's actually super moving. It's kind of quite obvious to use